The late afternoon light filtered through the cracked blinds of the small apartment, casting long shadows across the worn wooden floorboards. In the center of the room, Kim Taehyung paced softly, his arms gently cradling his 2 years old son, Taekook. The baby's head rested heavily against Taehyung's shoulder, warm and steady, breathing in soft rhythmic puffs. Taehyung adjusted the thin blanket around the child, his chest tight with a familiar mix of exhaustion and quiet affection. Since his world had shattered 3 years ago, Taekook was the single anchor holding him to the earth. The quiet didn't last long. The front door clicked open, followed by the heavy rhythmic thud of heels against the cheap linoleum floor. Taehyung's aunt, Mrs. Kim, walked in, setting her heavy handbag on the kitchen counter with a deliberate crash. "Is he finally asleep?" she asked, her voice sharp as always. "Yes, Auntie. He just drifted off a few minutes ago," Taehyung whispered, keeping his voice as gentle as possible so as not to disturb the baby. Mrs. Kim adjusted her coat and sat down on the armchair across from him. Her expression was hard, lined with the stress of maintaining a household she had never intended to share with a grieving nephew and an unexpected infant. "Good, because you and I need to talk," she said, leaning forward and placing her hands on her knees. "Look at you, Taeyang. You're 24 years old, spending all your days cooped up here, running yourself ragged. I've taken you in, given you a roof over your head after everything happened. But this situation cannot go on forever." Taehyung swallowed hard, hugging Taekook a little closer to his chest. "I'm looking for part-time work, Auntie. As soon as Taekook is a bit older, I'll find a steady job and pay you back for everything." "With what degree? You dropped out of university halfway through," she interrupted coldly. "No, Taehyung, I'm thinking about your future, whether you realize it or not. I spoke with a matchmaker last week." Taehyung froze. The color drained from his face. "A matchmaker?" "Yes," Mrs. Kim continued smoothly. "There is a very prestigious family, the Jeon family. Their eldest son was previously married, but it ended poorly. They are looking for a gentle, quiet partner for him to settle down with. I put your name forward." "Auntie, no," Taeyang stammered, panic fluttering in his throat. "I can't get married. I have Sunu. No family of that standing would ever accept a single father who—" "They don't know the full details," Mrs. Kim snapped, her eyes narrowing. "I told them the truth about your parents passing, but regarding the baby. I told them you were previously married and that your husband tragically passed away shortly before the child was born. They view you as a young, grieving widower taking care of his late husband's child." Taehyung stared at her in utter disbelief. "You lied to them? Auntie, how could you? If they find out—" "If they find out, it will be because you opened your mouth," she hissed, standing up. "Do you have any idea what kind of opportunity this is? The Jeons are enormously wealthy. You will never have to worry about rent, or food, or Taekook's education again. Do you want your son growing up in this cramped apartment, struggling for every breath just like you?" Taehyung looked down at Taekook's peaceful face. The word struggling hit him like a physical blow. He remembered the cold nights when the heating didn't work, the terrifying moments when he barely had enough money for formula, and the crushing guilt of not being able to give his baby the life he deserved. What if the man is cruel?" Taehyung whispered, his voice trembling. "What if he doesn't want Taekook near him? Jeon Jungkook was married once before. His ex-wife betrayed him and left him ruined emotionally. His parents want someone gentle and quiet to settle him down. They don't mind that you have a child from a deceased husband. This is your only chance at a stable life, Taehyung. If you refuse this, you pack your bags and leave this house tonight. With the baby." Taehyung felt the air pull right out of his lungs. He had nowhere to go. No savings, no parents to run to, and a who needed warm milk and shelter. He looked back at Taekook, who was sleeping peacefully, completely unaware of how fragile their world was. Taehyung bit his lower lip until he tasted iron, squeezing his hands into tight fists at his sides. "When?" Taehyung's voice broke. "When do I meet them?" "Tomorrow evening," his aunt replied, her face softening just a fraction, satisfied that she had won. "Dress nicely, and do not ruin this." She turned and closed the door behind her, leaving Taehyung alone in the shadows. Taehyung walked back to the bed and sank to his knees beside it. Tears spilled over his lashes, tracing silent paths down his pale cheeks. He reached out and stroked Taekook's soft cheek. He thought back to his life 3 years ago, back when his parents were still alive, when he was just an optimistic college student running across campus with a sketchbook tucked under his arm, completely unaware of how quickly the sky could fall. He was terrified of what tomorrow would bring. But looking at his son, Taehyung squeezed his eyes shut and whispered into the quiet room, "I'll protect you, Taekook. No matter what happens, I'll protect you." Across the city, in a luxurious office on the top floor of Jeon Enterprises, Jeon Jungkook sat behind his dark wooden desk, staring unseeingly at the financial reports in front of him. At 26, Jungkook was respected, wealthy, and strikingly handsome, but his eyes were hollow. Ever since his painful divorce from Lisa, a woman who had married him solely for his fortune and cheated on him just a week after their lavish wedding, Jungkook had closed his heart off completely. The door to his office opened, and his mother stepped in, holding a small brown envelope. "Jungkooka," she said softly. Jungkook sighed, rubbing his temples. "Mom, please tell me you're not here to talk about another matchmaking setup." "It's not just a setup, son. It's settled. You are coming to dinner tonight," his mother said firmly, placing the envelope on his desk. "The young man's name is Kim Taehyung. He has had a difficult life. His parents passed away years ago, and his husband died shortly after their baby was born." Jungkook didn't even look at the envelope. "Mom, I don't want a partner. I am fine being alone." "Jungkook, please," his mother urged, his stern voice carrying the heavy weight of concern. "It has been 2 years. You cannot lock yourself in this office for the rest of your life living like a shadow. What happened with Lisa? It was a tragedy, but you cannot let her actions dictate your entire future." The mere mention of her name sent a sharp, involuntary chill down Jungkook's spine. Lisa. Their marriage had been a whirlwind arrangement, a union of two prominent families that Jungkook had genuinely tried to make work. He had offered her his trust, his name, and his loyalty. But the illusion had shattered just a single week after their lavish wedding. He still vividly remembered the cold humiliation of walking into their penthouse to find her celebrating with another man, laughing openly about how easy it had been to secure the Jeon family's fortune. She hadn't married him out of affection, she had married the contract, the credit cards, and the prestige. When confronted, she hadn't even offered an apology, only bitter spite before the high profile, messy divorce proceedings began. Since that night, Jungkook had built impenetrable walls around his heart. He didn't trust smiles, he didn't trust soft words. To him, romance was a liability he had no intention of repeating. "Lisa proved exactly why personal attachments are a waste of time," Jungkook said, his tone icy. "I am perfectly fine on my own. The company is thriving. I don't need a partner." "You are not fine. You work 16 hours a day to avoid your empty house," his mother insisted, her voice softening with maternal concern. "Just meet him, Jungkook. For me. For your father. If you truly dislike him after tonight, we will never bring it up again." Jungkook closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. He knew his parents meant well, even if their methods were pushy. "Fine," Jungkook muttered coldly. "One dinner, that's all." After his mother left the room, silence settled over the office once more. Jungkook spun his chair around, looking back out at the glowing city lights. He didn't expect anything from tomorrow. He expected a polite, awkward dinner with a quiet stranger who was likely being forced into the arrangement by his own family just as much as Jungkook was. He would sit through the meal, pay the bill, politely decline a second meeting, and return to his structured, solitary routine. He had no idea that the past he had buried deep inside was waiting for him at that dinner table. The dining room of the Grand Regency was suffocatingly quiet. Marble pillars lined the walls, and the soft hum of classical violin music played from hidden speakers. Taehyung sat stiffly in his chair, his hands clasped tightly in his lap. He wore a simple navy blue. Beside him, in a portable car seat, TaeKook was fast asleep, clutching a small yellow bunny blanket. Aunt Myung sat across from him, adjusting her pearl necklace for the fifth time. Beside her sat Mr. and Mrs. Jeon. Mrs. John was a woman of obvious grace. Her hair was pulled back into an elegant chignon, and her eyes held a soft, empathetic warmth that made Taehyung's stomach twist with guilt. "He's such a precious baby," Mrs. John whispered, leaning over to glance at TaeKook. "Look at those long eyelashes, dear," she said, touching her husband's arm. Mr. John, a stern-looking man with graying temples, smiled faintly. "He looks healthy. You've taken good care of him, Taehyung." "Thank you, sir," Taehyung said softly, his voice barely above a whisper. He is very good. Matchmaker Choi told us about your parents, Mrs. Jeon said gently, reaching across the table to lay her hand over Taehyung's tense knuckles. "And your late husband. To lose so much at such a young age. My heart broke when I heard." Taehyung felt a hot rush of shame flood his cheeks. He instinctively pulled his hand back slightly before catching himself. I I just try to take it day by day, ma'am." "Call me mother," she said warmly, "or Mrs. John for now, if you prefer." Before Taehyung could respond, the heavy glass doors of the private dining room opened. A man walked in. "Forgive me for being late. Traffic was heavy near the bridge." A deep, smooth voice echoed into the room. Taehyung's heart dropped into his stomach. That voice, he would recognize it anywhere. It was a voice he had listened to from across crowded lecture halls, a voice that had lived in his quietest dreams during his freshman year of college. He lifted his head slowly, his breath catching in his throat. Standing in the doorway, taking off a dark coat to reveal a sharp charcoal grey suit, was Jeon Jungkook. He was broader now, his jawline sharper, his raven hair styled neatly back, and his posture commanding an air of cold authority. But those eyes, intense, deep, and slightly guarded, were unmistakably the same. Jungkook's Sunbae. Taehyung's world tilted on its axis. Memory slammed into him with the force of a tidal wave. Autumn afternoons on campus, watching Jungkook play basketball under the golden trees. Sitting 3 rows behind him in the library, hiding behind his sketchbook while drawing the side profile of his senior. The unspoken, aching crush Taehyung had carried in silence right up until the night his parents' fatal accident shattered his life and forced him to drop out. Jungkook pulled out the chair directly across from Taehyung. He sat down, his gaze shifting up from the table to look at the person sitting in front of him. Their eyes met. Taehyung held his breath. For a second, the bustling world outside, the soft violin music, and the quiet breathing of his baby vanished. Jungkook's eyes lingered on Taehyung's face, his brow furrowed slightly, a flicker of something passing through his dark pupils' confusion, or perhaps a faint sensation of familiarity. "Does he remember me?" Taehyung thought, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. "This is Kim Taehyung and his son Taekook." Jungkook bowed stiffly. "It's nice to meet you, Mr. Kim," he said, his tone polite. He pulled out his chair and sat down, his presence immediately dominating the quiet space. "Taehyung was telling us about how he's been managing," Mrs. Jeon began, trying to bridge the rigid atmosphere. "Jungkook, I was telling your father how gentle." Before she could finish her sentence, the phone inside Jungkook's inner jacket pocket vibrated loudly against the silence. Jungkook pulled it out, glancing at the screen. His expression instantly hardened. He stood up without hesitation. "I have to take this," Jungkook said flatly. "Jungkook, we are in the middle of a family dinner," Mr. John warned, his tone sharp with reprimand. "Can't it wait?" "It's the London acquisition team," Jungkook replied, his voice leaving no room for argument. "If I don't resolve this right now, 3 months of negotiations go down the drain." He didn't wait for his father's permission. Turning on his heel, Jungkook offered a brief, formal nod toward Taehyung and his aunt. "Excuse me, it was a pleasure meeting you, Taehyung-si." With that, he turned and strode out of the private suite, the heavy doors shutting behind him with a firm, definitive click. Silence descended upon the table. Mrs. Jeon sighed, offering an apologetic smile to Taehyung. "I am so sorry, Taehyung," He has been drowning himself in work lately. Please don't take it to heart. It's all right, ma'am, Taehyung whispered, looking down at his lap. Taehyung could barely breathe. His pulse hammered against his ribs. He doesn't remember me, Taehyung thought, a strange mixture of immense relief and quiet heartbreak washing over him. It made sense. Back in college, Jungkook was the popular, brilliant upperclassman, while Taehyung was just an introverted freshman who watched him from afar. Underneath the table, his fingers tightened around the fabric of Taekook's blanket. His mind was in absolute turmoil. The man his aunt was forcing him to marry, the wealthy, distant divorcee, was the very same boy he had loved from a distance years ago. And as Taehyung looked at his sleeping baby's peaceful face, a fresh wave of panic settled deep into his bones.